Welcome to UCF Knightline, your source for UCF sports and former player information.
Hello, Night Nation. This is Andrew Phegley coming to you from the 1148 studios, and this is Knightline 120. Joining me in the studio, as always,
Trylko. Hello, everyone. Nickels and dimes ends in a zero.
I know, it's a big one, 120. Can you imagine? We've done 120 of these.
Not even all the other things.
Now, I was looking on something the other day, and I think it's 170-something that we've actually done. We put out 170-somethings. So... Anyway.
70-somethings.
Yeah.
And now it's going to be 2-somethings a week.
Yeah. Knightline 120 is brought to you by the Dever Team, your source for New Smyrna Beach real estate and everything else New Smyrna Beach. Go to thedeverteam.com and call UCF alumni Travis Dever for all your New Smyrna Beach needs. 386-690-1636, 386-690-1636.
Knightline 120 is jam-packed. We have UCF's season opener against FIU covered from every angle. We got Brandon Helwig of UCFsports.com. We have the voice of Central Florida sports, Erik Kohler. 5 questions with the FIU Insider. We're answering some of your questions on Ask Knightline. Find out who we pick in Week 1 of UCF Fantasy. Plus, women's soccer shocks 4th-ranked North Carolina, and we were there. But first...
I'm ready. Trace, are you ready?
For a Thursday night party?
That gets me all excited.
Are you nervous or are you over it now? You ready for
I'm
post-game
still
live?
nervous. I'm still a little nervous. I am still a little nervous, but I'm getting really excited about it. It's all set up. It's ready to go. I know that we're not going to have any issues.
4 days as we record. 4 days.
I know. It's coming quickly. I'm so excited for football to start. I'm can't wait to do the show. It's going to be exciting. It's going to be fun. Yes, I'm a little bit nervous. I'm always a little bit nervous.
I'm nervous about the home opener,
from the
football standpoint.
If I wasn't nervous, something would be wrong as far as I'm concerned.
Hey, last week's test at Burger U went pretty well.
Yeah, it did.
Right? I mean,
there was a minor technical snafu.
Minor.
Yes, it was minor.
The atmosphere was good.
Yeah.
And we will be there following the conclusion of the game. 30 minutes after. Join us at Burger U. Got the extra headset, as you've been talking about. So if you're interested in sidling up and sharing your opinions on this UCF big victory over FIU.
Absolutely.
Yeah?
Yeah, I know people are hard on me about talking about my technical snafus, but it's the thing that I'm thinking about the most.
Things happen.
That's why I talk about it. I'll be like, oh, man, I can't believe I did that. It's the standard that I hold myself to. So, it is what it is. It will be good, though. Everything's going to work. It's going to be beautiful.
So, knock on wood. There we go. Remind folks of how they can find us.
30 minutes after the game on YouTube, you just search UCF Knightline or just Knightline, I think, and it'll come up. Right on YouTube, it will be a live feed. You have to click on the red button, click that play button on YouTube for it to work, but you can Bluetooth that to your car. You can listen to it in headphones. You can listen to it on most TVs now. So YouTube, 30 minutes after the game, and we'll be taking your calls, and we're going to have some guests, I know, show up. We're going to have an extra headset so people can talk to us that are there. It's going to be great.
And so folks can put this right into their contacts. What's the number that they call? Same number that we had last year.
Yeah, it's 407-401-9184. 407-401-9184, and that's the call-in number for YouTube. I'm not going to take calls right off the top. I'm going to, give it a few minutes of my recap of the game, probably. And then we'll get right into phone calls. If we have a guest sitting there with us already, we may talk to that person first.
Only place you can talk about the game after the game. So.
Yep, it's going to be live, but you guys are the stars of this show, basically. So, yeah, I mean, of course I'm going to talk a little bit, but, it'll be great. I can't wait. I love to interact with people. I love to talk to people. So,
and love to hear from alums and fans all over the country, all
absolutely.
over Central Florida, all over the state.
If you know people that don't know about us, please tell them. That's the biggest thing that I could ask any of you to do. It's bigger than money. It's bigger than any of the stuff. We've asked for certain things over the years, but that is what I need people to do more than anything else, is tell somebody that you know that does not know about us, and have them listen to that show and have them call in and talk to us. And I'm thinking that we're going to get a lot of phone calls. I will get to as many phone calls as I can during the show. Obviously, there's probably going to be some people that don't get in, but you'll just have to be quicker the next time.
Call once.
I'm expecting my phone to be ringing from the beginning.
Call just once and get that point out, and we'll talk about it as quickly as we can.
I will try to hang up on you as nice as possible. So
that's good. All right, so back to football. The initial depth chart was released. What stood out to you? Any surprises? Anything that caught you off guard?
Not a lot that surprised me. I mean, there were questions that I had. Maybe, the quarterbacks, all three of them being listed on there, or all two of the new freshmen and Mackenzie Milton being listed on there.
Mackenzie a starter and the freshman in a tie for second.
Either or, yeah. So, I mean, I'm not surprised by that. I was wondering if that was going to be on there. The rest of it, it's pretty much what I expected.
There were a lot of oars last year for the first game.
And I told you there was going to be oars. There was oars all through the season on that. So, and I think that's smart on Scott Frost's part personally, because I believe that you have to put out a depth chart.
Well, wasn't it Michigan wasn't very forthcoming a year ago about that.
Yeah, and I don't know what the rule is on that, but it's customary at least to put that out. So there's nothing that I'm shocked about, though. I think that it's all pretty much...
It would appear that camp went fairly well from an injury standpoint. That we're aware of any significant injury we're not aware of, and there's some people we're waiting to see, Tyler Hudanick, what progress they made in the offseason and during camp. But that's always a good thing when you can make it out without any serious injury.
Going back a little bit, the point that I was trying to make about the oars on there and why that's a good thing, because that's a little bit of confusion and a little bit of smoke. Because you want to have confusion and smoke in football. I wish they could throw smoke bombs. That would be awesome. Little smoke on the left side, and all of a sudden your running back shoots through there. Wouldn't that be awesome?
Well,
that could be cool.
If they allowed smoke like they do at the Orlando City game, sometimes the field is shrouded in the smoke.
I do have some clips here that I'd like to play, though, from the last week of practice. The first one here that I'm going to play is Scott Frost talking about some depth.
At several positions, I think we have a lot more depth. Really across the board on defense, I feel like we have more depth than we did last year. We have backups that are perfectly capable of going in and making big plays for us. I think we have better receiver depth. We have really good running back depth. We have 3 tight ends I think can play. Really continuing to develop some depth on the offensive line and backup quarterback. Other than that, I think we're way ahead of where we were last year.
Well, depth is a big thing in football, especially when you start playing, those Power 5 teams, because they have more depth because, they are able to get more good players. And so I think us having more depth is a very, very good thing. The starters get tired at some point, and then you bring in somebody else so they get to take a break.
And as we saw last year, injury certainly took a toll, especially on the line. Towards the end of the season, the offensive line was just running on fumes, and Coach Frost has talked about the need for an additional recruiting class or 2, and it does feel like to have the full depth that they need, they're going to need that another recruiting class to really have the backups that they want in place. But they've made a lot of strides in the past year.
Absolutely. All right, this next clip is Coach Walters talking about how we've come a long way.
We've come a long way since July 27th on both sides of the ball, special teams as well. We're playing a lot of young guys. They've made a great progression. They understand what we're trying to do. The team unity is there. I mean, this is probably the closest we've been since I've been here. So I think the guys generally care and love one another, and they love playing for one another, and they're going to sacrifice, and that'll go a long ways. And we stayed healthy, so that's always big. And so all in all, it was a great camp, and I think the guys are ready to play another opponent.
I like him talking, actually. Those are the things that you want to hear from a coach, about the team, getting together and, willing to sacrifice for each other. That's really what you want to hear.
And that chemistry has been one of the themes of the camp. You've heard Coach Frost and others talk about how they're coming together closer as a football team. And I think they're just ready to hit somebody else, too, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Enough already. It's
Absolutely.
time for us to be talking about real games.
That's interesting because I believe that Coach Chenander says that in this next clip.
The thing that excites me the most is just, I think everybody, including myself, said, you guys were pretty good on defense last year, lost a lot of players. Hopefully we can be good this year, right? So we're kind of playing with a chip on our shoulder, even though there's a little hype going around now. But we're trying to say, can we be better than last year? And absolutely we can be. Can we be as good as anybody in the league? Absolutely we can be. But I'm excited for these guys to take that challenge on. I'm excited for the culture in our room, the togetherness of this defense. Last year, maybe it wasn't as close of a unit. Some good players changing over systems, changing over positions, changing over culture of the whole team. They were the guys that we lost last year started to form the culture, and these guys have really taken that thing and run with it. So I'm really surprised. I'm really happy. I'm really excited to watch this group run around and have fun together and make plays.
You know what? I'm glad that nobody got hit by that thing that was backing up during that interview.
It's during every interview.
It's the I'm pretty sure that it's the big like scissor lifts that they use.
Well,
to
the
get
equipment trucks, and they're bringing all that stuff off the
Yeah.
practice field. But it's funny how you always hear all those noises.
Yeah, it's funny, but it's good. It's cool. It's all good. I'm just glad that we get to hear from these coaches. It's a lot of insight that you couldn't get otherwise. I'm happy that they talk. I'm happy that they're willing to talk. We don't hear from Chenander that much. So.
For as heralded as his defense was last year,
yeah,
he's
one
not
of the best
that
things that we've got going on around here. I can tell you that. Hopefully that defense will follow through very well.
Couple more football notes. Shaquem Griffin named preseason All-American by USA Today. You ready for you're going to be out there early enough, aren't you? You're going to go over and hear Luke
Absolutely.
Combs'
I would not miss it.
pregame concert before the FIU game, 4 o'clock. I believe it's out there in front of the stadium.
Interesting time for a concert, but that's cool.
Yeah,
it's all good.
4 o'clock. And, of course, this one, dubbed Frost Warning, we're expected to wear white.
Yeah, well,
I'm not sure how that works with our new black polo Knightline.
Well, I'll be switching
shirts,
into that
but,
later. I'm wearing that jersey that I bought last year that was so dang expensive. Absolutely, yeah. I'll be wearing that.
Let's get you ready for the season opener with our next guest. He is Brandon Helwig, publisher of the widely read UCFsports.com. Brandon, thanks so much for being with us again.
Yeah, it's great to be here. In fact, just kind of thinking back, as long as I've been, covering and been following UCF, it's been about 20 years since I've been following UCF. So I think it was 97 was the first season. I've been at least every home game since, and a good amount of the road games since then. So, it's 10 years in Bright House, but it's 20 years for me and UCF football.
Happy anniversary. How about that?
Absolutely.
Wow. And for the last 2 seasons, you've looked outside the fence and not gotten to see a lot of practice under head coach Scott Frost. So
exactly.
as camp wraps
That's one
up.
reason you're just antsy for the season to get here, because, you go nearly every day and do interviews, and you're just asking the same old questions, and you really don't know anything. You're just ready for the actual games to get here, so you'll kind of have an idea of what's going on.
This week you put out a post on your website that basically broke everything down by position. It was a great look into what's going on at UCF. So let's start at the quarterback position.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if there was really much of a competition in terms of going into camp. Mackenzie Milton is a returning starter. Everyone expected he would win the job. Pete DeNovo has been here for forever, it seems like. Started that game in Ireland. He was initially here, but in all honesty, no one really thought he would compete for the job. And as it turns out, a week or so into camp, he just vanished. I guess he just decided, I've had it. I maybe am being slid down to maybe third on the depth chart. I've been here. I've already graduated. So I'm not really sure what happened. He just stopped showing up, wasn't in communication with anybody. So he's out of the equation. So that makes things interesting. The backup quarterback, I get the sense they're really not going to name a set backup quarterback. They're just, when the depth chart came out the other day, they just put the 2 true freshmen, Noah Vedral or Daryl Mack. We get the sense Noah Vedral is, maybe ahead of Daryl Mack in the pecking order. He came in, really knew his stuff in terms of, absorbing the offense and everything, and earned a lot of praise early in camp. But, that's an interesting position. Mackenzie Milton's got to improve. It's a big year for him. But beyond that, I mean, he's only an ankle away or hard hit away from, seeing some true freshman play. So if we talk about offense, that's kind of maybe the biggest question mark going into it.
Well, some chatter this week that UCF might play 3 quarterbacks at various points during the season. Do you see that happening, that they would burn both red shirts for Vedral and Mack?
In the nature of this offense, and the quarterbacks are going to run around and they're going to get hit. I mean, they're going to get tackled hard, so even if I'm not saying, someone's going to have a catastrophic season-ending injury, but, you can get knocked out, you can sprain an ankle. There's different things that can happen where all of a sudden you got to get in there. So, I think they're going in, if you're going to have three quarterbacks for sure. I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, I just don't know. Certainly one of them is going to play, but, to me, I wouldn't be shocked if all 3 of them end up playing, especially if it's a situation – don't want to start knock on wood here, but if something did happen to McKenzie Milton, you never know. I mean, maybe you just decide who's the better quarterback by giving both of them a chance out there. So, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if all 3 of them play this season.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the depth chart that they released, all 3 of them are on there. So, assuming that all 3 of them will be in there at some point. The biggest other thing that I think really everybody's worried about, and it seems like every year we're worried about this, is the offensive line. What do you know about what's happened with the offensive line in the offseason?
We talked about quarterback, but really the biggest position that needed to improve is the offensive line. And for the most part, I mean, it's the same guys from last year. So you hope those guys are more mature, another year in the strength program, gotten, stronger, more better knowledge of the system. From the vibe that we hear, and practices are closed, but for the most part, the Scott Frost and the coaching staff are pretty candid about, areas maybe that are concerning, areas that, they feel pretty good about. And they've said they felt pretty good about UCF's offensive tackles, that being Aaron Evans and Wyatt Miller, that those guys have been solid, have done a good job. They're pretty comfortable there. It's the other positions that are more of a question mark. Center Jordan Johnson has improved, and, I mean, they can kind of see things are turning on there, but they've pretty much put it in no uncertain terms that they're kind of shaky about the status of the 2 guard spots. There's been a few guys competing there. I know they put out that depth chart, and they put Tyler Hudanik was listed as a starter there for the opening game. That was pretty shocking for me to see. We'll just see what happens if he's actually on the field and playing on Thursday. I'd still be surprised if he was. I think it's a situation where when he does give, and he's the guy I probably should have mentioned, midway through last season, suffered a knee injury, had to have surgery, and is finally, getting in the stages of making a comeback. But, some of the chatter and buzz was, he may not be ready at the beginning of the season. It may be, late September, early October. It's not like people are sharing his weekly medical progress report with the media. Coach Frost doesn't talk about injuries. He can't see practice. I know he wasn't practicing in the early part of camp. So if he's fully recovered to be able to start game 1, that would be great, because he was UCF's best offensive lineman last year. I just don't know if that's reality. I mean, we'll see what happens. Sometimes you get that gamesmanship with depth charts and whatnot. I'd heard a lot of things about Samuel Jackson, one of the true freshmen, that, there's a good chance that he will start at that guard spot. We'll see if that happens. If that happens, I can see, they don't want to advertise that to FIU and say, hey, we're starting an untested, inexperienced true freshman. So maybe that's part of the gamesmanship that comes with it. So I'll be very interested to kind of see what happens at that position on Thursday.
What we've heard from you and others talking about Hudanik maybe not coming in for a couple of weeks, what threw me at Media Day was he himself said to us that he had a good feeling that he would be there in game 1, but sort of left the door open that maybe if he wasn't absolutely needed, he'd be ready for the Memphis game. So I don't know if that's just his wishful optimism.
Yeah, he kind of said a similar statement to me, and, he really wants to get back. I mean, and I'm not going to, be on there, trying to grill him, give me the details of your knee, when are you coming back? Are you sure? That's just kind of inappropriate to do that. He really wants to come back. He's doing everything he can to come back. It just seems from stuff we've heard the last few weeks that it would be unexpected for him to be ready by game one. But the hope is that, once hopefully the season gets going, that he could make a return at some point in that first month.
What do you know about Parker Boudreaux? What's going on with him? There's been a lot of talk.
Yeah, he's applied for a hardship to be eligible this year. I've been in communication with his family. They haven't heard anything back. I asked that again on Friday night. I'm not expecting it just because the NCAA is pretty stingy with these requests nowadays. And, I'm not sure, I haven't really heard much about him in terms of, how he's doing. I'm pretty sure they've, stuck him on one of those, second or third, or actually, third teams because they don't expect him to play this year. So if he does get a waiver and plays, until that happens, I'm not really sure if he's in the mix for or would be in the mix for a primary spot.
Well, speaking of him and speaking of him transferring from Notre Dame, it seems to me like UCF is becoming kind of a transfer hotspot for players from SEC schools, ACC schools to be coming to kind of start over.
That's really how it is. Some of these guys, not all of them are from Florida. On Friday, it was out there that UCF is getting a big defensive line transfer from Hawaii, and Hawaii, as Mackenzie Milton is from Hawaii, but Hawaii was a big recruiting grounds for University of Oregon. And his first name's Canton. I'm not looking at his name right now. I'm going to bungle his last name. I'm trying to go by memory.
I really wanted you to try that one. I was really looking forward to that.
He was a former 5-star, and he's here. And I was getting texts from people who saw him on Friday, and they're like, "Man, this kid is massive. He's huge. He's 6'7". He's like 300 pounds. He's been injury prone. He had concussion problems at Oregon. And so, he has to sit out this year, but, there's, another corner from Alabama coming in. There's a tight end that came in from Wisconsin. So there's a lot of talent. If you look at some of the positions that UCF is going to be losing this year, there's some experienced guys that'll be coming in, not just recruiting, but these transfers. So, things, the depth is going to look good for next year. And I know we're going to talk about this season, but if they can replace that defensive line that's going to be graduated this year, this could be a very good team next year.
Absolutely. So one of the other big things, and I believe that he's eligible this year, is Mike Hughes that comes in from Garden City Community College, but via North Carolina. Everything that I've read about this guy, everything that I've heard about this guy is this guy can be a superstar.
From what I heard, and that was one of the areas that, there's some guys at corner, but that was maybe the one position on defense that, maybe wasn't quite up to the standard of the other spots. UCF's best corner is arguably Neville Clark, and he's one of the two guys that has to sit the first 6 games due to the NCAA suspension, failing that drug test at the Cure Bowl last year. So with him being out, that really, that's really a bad thing for the cornerbacks, and so they're trying to find guys to play. And Mike Hughes, he's proven it. Some of these transfers that UCF has gotten, they really haven't proven it at the major college level. Maybe they were highly touted recruits or whatever, but Mike Hughes played significantly as a true freshman at North Carolina in 2015, got into a little bit of trouble, had to leave the program, had to go to community college and stuff, but he's actually proved it, and he is going to be a player. It's just going to be a slow process of how they get him, how they get him acclimated, learning the defense, and how quickly they want to, put him out there. But I wouldn't be surprised if we get to that latter half of the season and UCF's 2 starting corners are guys that, aren't going to be starting week 1. I'm talking about Mike Hughes and Neville Clark when he comes back. I wouldn't be surprised if those are the starters, and then there'll be some pretty good depth behind them.
All right, one more transfer that I'm going to ask you about, and that would be Case Harrison. He's the offensive guy, except for Parker Boudreaux. What do you know about Case Harrison? We know that he's a senior here on a graduate degree.
Yeah, he's a walk-on transfer. He had graduated at Florida, and when you graduate and you still got eligibility left, you can go someplace else and play. I've not spoken to him yet from an interview standpoint, but he's a smart guy from what we hear and what other people say. He's very intelligent. He knows the offense. He's kind of a leader and a mentor to, some of these other wide receivers. And he's been mentioned a few times by Troy Walters. I'm not sure if he'll be one of the prominent guys, 1, 2, or 3, but it seems like he'll definitely be, playing some sort of role maybe in that top 7 or so. We'll see. I don't know a lot about him, but I'm anxious to see if he can do anything out there.
All the storylines in camp, the quarterback situation, offensive line, secondary. One storyline that I think maybe hasn't gotten enough chatter, and of course when you can't see practice, you can't talk much about it, but I'm very curious to see what role Adrian Killens plays in the offense. What chatter have you heard as you've hung out outside the Nicholson Fieldhouse?
Yeah, Adrian Killens and really another player I think is a very similar player is true freshman Otis Anderson. You really can't label them as a certain position. They're just basically like an offensive athlete. They can play running back. They can play slot receiver. In the case of Killens, you're going to see him in the return game. We haven't really heard a lot about, the role, just we know they're going to be utilized. And in fact, it seems like, and this is just, whether it's completely accurate or not, it seems like there's been more buzz about, maybe it's because he's a freshman and he's new and Killens has been here a year, but there's been a lot of buzz about Otis Anderson and how much he's going to play. And he was practicing, with the running backs, in the spring. Now he's practicing with the receivers. He can line up at any of those positions. And we've heard a lot of really good things about him. Maybe people just tend to hype up the guys that, haven't been here before, and people always want to hear about, which freshmen are, standing out or going to play. But, yeah, both of those, you remember the speed of Adrian Killens last year. Otis Anderson has similar speed. When you talk about the depth, UCF is going to have a running back and receiver. It's pretty doggone good.
Is it possible that the reigning American Defensive Player of the Year in Shaquem Griffin could be better, more fearsome this coming season?
Well, you guys were there. If you heard Scott Frost talk at the media day, he certainly kind of hyped him up like he is, like he's a better player than he was last year. He said he's a terror on the field, I think is how he, characterized Shaquem Griffin. So it'll be interesting to see, because last year, he was just kind of early on. He didn't know what he was doing. He was learning his way. He was just excited to be on the field playing with his brother. It was basically the biggest thing to him. And then all of a sudden he's, doing what he's doing, racking up sacks left and right, and then eventually getting the Conference Player of the Year. But, that overall linebacker position is something that, it seems like going into it, coaches really weren't sure what to expect. They graduated every other starter. Other than Griffin, between Rucker, Dimitri Brim, who's the other one I'm not remembering? Dimitri, Brim, Rucker. Well, anyway, just one other guy graduated, Earl Clark. That was the third one. So they graduated all three of those guys. But from what the coaches talk about, they're pretty excited. Titus Davis, that other outside linebacker spot, Sean Burgess-Becker moving over from safety, backing up Shaquem. That's we were talking about transfers. He's the Alabama transfer. He's doing well. Bam Bam Bacote, as they call him. They kind of say he's a young version of Shaquem Griffin. And then the inside linebackers between Jasinski and Nate Evans and one of the JUCO transfers, really seems like that's going to be a strength. So, I know we haven't gotten into the defensive talk. Maybe we're kind of segueing into it now.
Perfectly fine.
That's the side of the ball that, honestly, they act like could be better than last year.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. You had a headline on the front page of UCFsports.com the other day, and it said, Frost, defense could be better than last year.
Yeah, that's what he said. He was just kind of, just talking, just kind of thinking about, talking about the state of the team and the defense. And, he said it. He wouldn't ask, could they be? He just kind of just dropped that line in there, So, you can, and it takes a while to kind of, it's just you can't say anything. And even if you can see, practice, it's always hard to know because, the defense on any team is usually going to have an idea of what the offense is going to do. And so it's not like, I knew UCF had a pretty good team in 2013, but it's not like we're like, oh, yeah, this is like this team's going to, win all these games and, win the Fiesta Bowl. And, it's not like you could really predict that by watching a handful of practices. But it seems like, there's kind of like a quiet confidence, at least on the defensive side, that they're going to be really, really good. I think, I don't know. We'll see kind of how these games go. Does that kind of dictate how you call games? Do you want to go? They talk about, UC fast. We're going to go really fast and snap the ball really quickly. Maybe they'll do that in targeted spots. But if that defense is really good and the offense is kind of maybe slower to come along and things like that. Maybe you kind of, change up tempo and things like that. So it'll be interesting. But, if you've got a good defense, there's really no game, in my opinion, that you can't win. I mean, last year going into it, you knew coming off 0-12, you're playing Michigan in week 2. That was going to pretty much be an impossible task. So every game is a winnable game. So it'll be interesting to see what happens.
We'd be remiss if we didn't make mention of the top story of camp, and that is, how is UCF going to survive without Donald Delahaye? Talk about special teams real quick.
Oh man, yeah. Is there any kicker on the team that can do a backflip and then kick it into a trash can from 30 yards? I mean, is there anybody? I don't know.
Is there anybody that can consistently kick the ball out of bounds on kickoffs? Do we have anybody that can do that?
Yeah, that was a big controversial topic and stuff. But after the maybe 5 days of media buzz and people on Twitter spazzing out about the NCAA and not really understanding what the rules are and stuff, but that's died down. I mean, he's doing what he's doing. I guess that's good for his career. I mean, he kind of knew he wasn't any better than a backup kicker that had to work on keeping it in bounds. So I don't know. I have a feeling that we're really not going to hear much about that as the season goes on.
Yeah, I think that he probably got what he needed from that with the publicity, and then now it's really starting to fall off, so it's his job to keep his thing going if he wants it to keep going, If
he's not making football videos, I mean, there's a lot of popular YouTubers that produce content that I don't know why anyone watches, but they get millions of views. But he's going to have to come up with original. I mean, who really cares? He can do whatever. I mean, I don't really have any ill will towards the guy, but
no.
He's going to have to come up with original material. And his whole channel was built on the basis of being a student athlete and a college kicker, and now he's none of those things. So I don't really know what the attraction of his channel is going to be going forward. So it'll be interesting to see how that works out.
What are you looking for in game one besides the obvious things that we've been talking about? The quarterback play, how the offensive line looks. What's something else that you're directing our fans to keep an eye on that maybe is an emerging storyline?
Yeah. Oh, let's see here. I really wasn't thinking about that kind of question. Just to see how smoothly everything works and, maybe more of from a special team standpoint. Special teams was kind of an overlooked area, but really wasn't very good last year. Are things going to move a lot smoother, in year 2 that everyone is, familiar with the system and everything? You would like to, and the thing about FIU, we don't really know a lot. I mean, UCF obviously beat them pretty good down there last year, but this is a new coaching staff. And from what we understand, I mean, it's obviously an upgrade. You've got legendary coach Butch Davis. And from what we understand, that's a very solid staff. And, all their practices are closed, too. I don't know if FIU has any media, but, they're closed, so no one really knows what's going on. And from, just some buzz and chatter that they're going to be a much improved team. It's not going to be like last year where UCF just kind of show up and, score 56 points or whatever it was last year. So, can UCF not only win, but can they, look good doing it? That'll be interesting because it's a tough month. I mean, you've got to play Memphis in week 2. That's a team predicted to win the West Division. I mean, that's a very tough game. You got Georgia Tech after that. You got Maryland. So, I mean, it kind of goes without saying it's a must win. But in order to kind of, get some confidence that, this could be, better than, say, a 6-6, 7-5 type season, you would like to see them handle FIU pretty good. That would kind of give the fan base some kind of, newfound excitement going into week 2 to think, I think this team really has improved from last year, especially from an offensive standpoint. And I really rambled on there. I'm not even sure what my point was after a while.
That's okay.
Hey, 20 years of doing this, you're allowed to ramble every once in a while.
Absolutely, absolutely. Nobody knows more than you do about this stuff. Speaking of, I know there's a lot of people that know who you are that are on this, but for those people that don't, tell us about your website and tell us where they can find it and everything like that.
Yeah, well, the site is pretty easy to find. It's UCFsports.com. It's been around for a pretty long time, since 1999. It's where the biggest message board is, the dungeon, where all the fans post and give their excellent opinions on everything. And I'm on Twitter at UCF Sports. So that's where you can find me.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for coming on here. We always appreciate it, your wealth of knowledge on all this stuff. And I'm going to give you the invitation now to join us at Burger U after any of the games this year for our post-game show. We'll have an extra headset there. You're welcome at any time.
Well, thank you.
All right.
That's fantastic that you guys are able to do that and kind of fill a niche that, hasn't been filled, and to have like a real post-game show, and especially something that is on campus too, because a lot of people are just kind of hanging out after the game and they're going to Burger U anyway. That's going to be really cool. I'm really excited to see how that does this year. You guys are doing really great.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
All right, guys. I will see you guys. Maybe I'll see you this week at one of the interviews. If not, I'll see you on Thursday.
All right, Ask Knightline. We're answering your questions. Got several this week, Andrew. Me and Angus on Twitter and wants to know...
That's the person's name? That's their Twitter handle? Me and Angus. Is that like an Angus beef?
I don't know.
Or is that an Angus Young?
I don't know. And wants to know about Scott Frost's game plan for FIU. Of course, it's just speculation on our part, but I think they want to get some people some playing time.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, I guess the game plan for FIU would be based on what maybe Butch Davis has done in the past. I think maybe you could look at some tape as far as that goes. I'm not sure who their coordinators are, but you would obviously go back and look at tape from their coordinators wherever they came from. So whatever teams that they came from, you would look at their tape.
I mean, just from a talent standpoint, UCF has more talent. And remember, UCF shellacked them down in Miami last year. So...
right.
Just from a talent
that's
standpoint.
A given, yeah. So I would think his game plan is to... I wouldn't show a lot like we had talked about
with
before.
Memphis coming up in game 2.
You don't want to show everything you've got. You don't want to use all your trick plays on one team. And I think that especially once we get a good lead on them, you pull a lot of starters and you put people in for garbage time for sure.
Yeah.
If you can. So hopefully that will be, what happens. And I love the name Me and Angus, by the way.
Yeah.
I'm going to make ours Me and Trace.
Oh, is that what that's going to be?
It'll be the next one.
Our buddy Andrew on Facebook asked, with Pete DeNovo gone, what are your thoughts on potentially going with a 3-quarterback rotation this season? We talked a little bit with Brandon about that. What's your guess on that? I mean,
well, Scott Frost has said that he does not like to play the rotating quarterback game.
Right.
He will never do that if everything is working. He's definitely said that. He said that recently.
So somebody's going to earn that 2 spot. I don't think they want to burn that red shirt if they don't have to on that third quarterback.
I don't think that's even a question anymore. I believe that both of those red shirts obviously will get burned.
Really? You just don't think they're going to save one of them back?
No.
If they don't need that third quarterback?
You've only got 3.
But if they don't need that third quarterback?
Well, you can keep it as long as until you have to burn it, but it's going to be burned. Absolutely.
Period or early?
You have to have 3 quarterbacks.
No,
you have to. If one goes down, then that leaves you with 2. So there's going to have to be. And for rotational purposes, I believe that each one of these quarterbacks could probably do something different. If he did want to do that, maybe use somebody on third down, maybe use somebody as a wildcat, of course, that we've been talking about. Wait, maybe put one out as a receiver or something. We've seen that in the past. Or snap the ball to, a running back and have a quarterback, run down and try to catch a pass. I mean, there's no question that there will be no redshirt quarterback.
Eric asking all the news coming out of camp, how good the freshman quarterbacks have looked. How much rope does Mackenzie Milton have before he could potentially be replaced? Boy, that question just hangs into the first game, doesn't it?
It does. I think Scott Frost has proved that Mackenzie Milton has a ton of rope, and I don't think
last season, right? Yeah, that's well said.
Yeah, and I don't think that you're going to see him be replaced unless he's injured. I really don't.
Or performance falters significantly.
I mean, he'd have to be fumbling every other play or something. I mean, that would be the only way that I believe that you see him not being out there. Maybe he'll give him a chance to come off the field and take a little bit of a break if one of the,
which is not something he did much of last season and could have benefited from it, I think.
Right, but Noah Vetterall really seems to, from what we've heard, grasp everything well. So I think that would be a better chance to throw somebody out there that actually grasps this offense a little bit better even than Holman did, because I don't think Holman grasped it very well, to be honest with you. So I think that having Noah allows maybe McKenzie to come off every once in a while and look at things if he needs to from the sideline. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see that.
Chris asking running back question. Cordarian Richardson says, what do you expect from him in the backfield along with Jawan Hamilton?
I like this, though, because hashtag sledge. I like that because I did the hashtag the hammer for Jawan Hamilton. I love it. It's awesome. Thank you, Chris. That's great.
We're stacked at running back.
I don't know. I mean, we have tons of running backs. If somebody could redshirt, honestly, it could be him. But then again, we mentioned in one of the other questions about a third down situation. And having a big guy like that in the backfield on a third down situation would be beautiful.
I remember it was this time last year when we were going into the season, and you said, and I was skeptical of it, you thought every single freshman had a chance of playing at some point in the season. And I remember going, not Mackenzie Milton.
And how many freshmen actually redshirted? There were not many.
No.
Scott Frost, I don't think really, honestly.
No depth. He didn't have the depth.
He didn't have the depth, but you look at the depth chart this year that he just put out, and there's most of the freshmen that were in this class are on it. So I don't think that they're, at least for the first few years around here, hopefully Scott Frost sticks around, and can show us. But he needs every one of those guys that he can get, and these are his players. These are the guys that he wanted. These are the guys that fit his, mold. So
we may not always have time for this on the regular Knightline that we drop on Sunday nights, but I like the Ask Knightline question because it gives us a window into what fans are thinking about. So, post your questions to us on Twitter at hashtag Ask Knightline.
Well, we've got a
Facebook.
whole show coming up with Post Game Live after every game. That these are the questions that people should use. Ask questions for sure. I mean, I'm sure.
We're watching right along with you, so we've got the same types of questions going on.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. These are awesome questions, by the way, and we have been trying to get people to do this for quite a while, and now it's finally working, and I think that we should try to keep this in as much as we can.
All right.
I love it.
All right, boss.
It's one of my absolute favorite segments that we've ever done.
All right.
Thank you.
Done deal.
This was Trace's idea. I just said okay.
Done deal.
Awesome.
5 questions with an insider. Getting to know this week's opponent.
We're getting ready for UCF's first game by taking a closer look at FIU. Joining us today is Pete Pellegrin, a return guest on Knightline. Pete is part of the sports information team at FIU. Pete, thanks for joining us on Knightline.
You got it.
Let's begin with the notable name leading FIU now. He's Butch Davis, no stranger to the Sunshine State. What's the fan base's reaction to Davis's arrival?
Oh, they're excited. I mean, this program needed a jolt after 4, somewhat mediocre years, if that. And he certainly brought that. His pedigree. He's been in the NFL and college and arguably assembled one of the most talented college football teams during his time across town at the University of Miami, where he produced about 10 future NFL Hall of Famers.
So talk about what Coach Davis has to work with. FIU is rebuilding, coming off of a 4-8 season in 2016. Tell us about senior quarterback Alex Magoo and his targets.
Well, Alex Magoo is in his last year. He holds a lot of the FIU passing records, but really hasn't had a team around him, and some of it, it goes on his shoulders as well, that has been able to get to a bowl game. But he's back. He's got his favorite target in Thomas Owens back as well, senior receiver. They will have to make up for the loss of tight end Jonnu Smith, who was drafted by the Tennessee Titans in the 3rd round last April, or whenever the draft was. And he's got FIU's all-time leading rusher, Alex Gardner, back as well in the backfield. So skill positions on the offense are fine. The concern is the offensive line, which doesn't have much experience.
You mentioned Alex Gardner there. What about the running game?
Well, that should be fine. But again, if the offensive front can't block, doesn't matter if you have, Marshall Faulk back there or Barry Sanders. It's going to be some tough sledding. So it all depends on how this young, inexperienced offensive line develops. You have Gardner. You also have Anthony Jones back there, who's a little bit bigger than Gardner. And they have the return of Napoleon Maxwell, who tore his knee twice in the last 2 years, but he may be FIU's best back. If, he's back 100%, He just hasn't played in 2 years. But as far as the total package, he may be FIU's best back because he's got the size and he's the fastest running back as well, timed at a 4.5 in the 40.
Let's shift to the defense a little bit. Who are the playmakers that could make a difference against UCF?
Well, FIU might have the best linebacking core in Conference USA with Anthony Wint and Trayvon Williams. It's a couple of senior linebackers, and they also have other linebackers in the core that are younger and just as good. Again, like the offense, the defense, it's the front, the defensive line, where there's not much experience there and not much game experience or senior type of experience. And that will definitely be an area that the Panthers will have to keep an eye on all season to see how that develops.
What are some reasonable expectations for the Panthers this year, who haven't been to a bowl game since 2011 and are just 17-43 in the past 5 seasons?
I think a reasonable expectation is to get those 6 wins and get into a bowl game. 5 to 6 wins. It all depends on the fronts, the offensive and defensive fronts. This is a team that Butch Davis pretty much has inherited, I would say, 2/3 of the players return, and he's already put his stamp on it by bringing in about 30 newcomers. And you could tell, looking at a lot of the players that Butch Davis has brought in, how different some of these players are as far as athletic and size. When, for example, we have a graduate transfer tight end, Pharaoh McKeever from North Carolina State, and he's a guy that's 6'6", 260 pounds. And he's pretty quick running as well. And a guy that might be able to replace Jonnu Smith. And, that's the type of players that Butch is bringing in, these NFL body type players.
Pete, thank you very much. We always enjoy you coming on and giving us your insight on FIU. Good luck this season.
Anytime, Andrew. Thank you.
Not good luck this week, though. UCF Fantasy, we debut it this week. Knightline versus our friends with the black and gold banneret. Reminding, we talked about it at Burger U, each team picks one player on offense and one player on defense from UCF. Offensive players, you get a point for every 10 yards rushing and receiving, 5 for a touchdown scored. If you pick the quarterback and nobody did, you're going to tell us the picks, Andrew. You only get points for what they do rushing and receiving. Defensive players, 1 point for every tackle, 5 points for a sack, interception, or forced fumble, 5 points for a touchdown scored. I like it.
Yeah.
I like it. It gives us some rooting interest in some players
We
in
need
Thursday's
some
game.
kind of a sound for the picks, like a bingo ball going around.
Oh, there you go.
So this week's picks, the Banneret selects Jawan Hamilton at number 1.
That's a good pick.
Yeah, good
That's a good pick. You can't go wrong with that.
Yeah, that's who I would have picked. And then we picked Shaquem Griffin at number 2. And
That's
then,
solid.
Then Banneret goes Trey Neal, and Knightline solidifies the situation with the 4th pick of Traquan Smith.
I like it.
Yeah.
I like it. So this is a season-long tally and steak dinner on the line. And if we win, it's a high-priced steak at like a Ruth Chris.
Absolutely.
And if they win, it's a steak at Denny's.
Yeah, Denny's. Actually, Waffle House.
They serve steak?
Yeah.
Well,
You can get anything you want at Waffle House. Man, Waffle House is awesome.
That's
I would love
probably
to have
true.
Waffle House as a sponsor, by the way. It'd be awesome. Waffle House, if you're listening.
there you go. History made. It was something at the UCF Soccer Complex on Friday. Women's soccer beats number 4 ranked North Carolina 2-1, double overtime. The Knights' first ever win over the Tar Heels. Senior Christine Creighton, she had the game-winning goal.
I'm just so overwhelmed and excited. I can't even explain it. To all the people, my teammates, my coach, my family, everybody that's helped me, because I've struggled a lot in college, and this was a moment of victory and excitement. I'm just so grateful for that goal.
Knights head coach Tiffany Roberts-Zeta gets the win over her alma mater, where she won 2 national championships.
I want my enthusiasm and my passion just to will them to do their job or to make that last run or, to mark that man in the box. And I just felt like they needed every ounce of energy. And so, everybody who, the players that weren't on the field to the coaching staff, everyone was so engaged and willing everyone. So it wasn't just me, it was just everybody willing them to win tonight. And I think that helped too.
UCF now 2-1 on the young season. Shout out to my friends with the Queen's Cast podcast that covers the Orlando Pride. Andrew, they've invited me on weekly to talk about UCF women's soccer season. So far, so good. We've got something to talk about, and that drops towards the end of the week. Awesome. The Orlando Pride's podcast. Coming up next, the voice of Central Florida sports. You know him, Erik Kohler. He gets us ready for Thursday's opener next.
There are so many ways to connect with Knightline. You can like us on Facebook at Knightline Podcast or follow us on Twitter at UCF_Knightline. Check out our website at www.ucfnightlinepodcast.com for recruit spotlights, archived episodes, and more. Or, of course, you can always call us at 407-401-9184. That's 407-401-9184. Listen whenever and wherever you are on YouTube, SoundCloud, Stitcher, iTunes, or tune in. Go Knights and charge on!
Our countdown to the season opener continues with the voice of Central Florida sports, the one, the only, Erik Kohler. Erik, how you doing?
What's up, guys? How are you? Happy Sunday. Happy football season.
Finally.
It is here. It is here. What are you most looking forward to when you get in front of that microphone on Thursday?
Well, I'll tell you what, we got some new ribbon boards at Spectrum Stadium, and I say Spectrum Stadium. A lot of people know that are loyal to the program. All these years have been Bright House Sports Network Stadium, but now it's Spectrum Stadium, and I'm excited about the new enhancements, the sound system, and the ribbon board on the south side of the stadium. That's going to be very exciting for the UCF Nation fan base.
Have you been practicing that? Have you got to wean yourself off the old name?
Well, practice, I don't know, maybe it becomes second nature. But we did our dress rehearsal on Friday, and we turned everything on and to make sure everything was fully powered and everything set up. So it's an exciting time.
By the way, I heard your booming voice. I was over at the UCF women's soccer game, and we could hear that reverberating through the soccer complex. So I got a little excited because I heard that the first day I heard all of it in action there. So you sounded good preseason there.
Nah, that's funny that you say that. I had reservations about us doing that in terms of the big historical win for UCF women's soccer. Congratulations to the coach to beat North Carolina. It just worked out that way where we had to do the dress rehearsal the same time. But you are correct, sir.
Yes. A question for you. I've been thinking about this as we listen to you. You're just a part of the fabric of the UCF community, and we hear your voice so regularly. How do you deal with your voice between quarters? Do you sip on something? Do you have a lozenge? How do you keep your vocal cords fresh for 3+ hours?
I think it's a great question. This is the first time this year that UCF marketing has taken to my point that I was kind of worried about my voice preservation of some of the pregame reads, halftime reads that have become redundant. And this year we actually pre-recorded some of those to save my voice. There's no lozenge special or secret, anything like that. But the fact of the matter is that I don't know, man. It's just there's a lot to read, and I just got to be ready before pregame.
And now you have a 7th home game, so even more to say.
No, it's cool. To be honest with you guys have been a big supporters of UCF football and UCF Knights in general. I mean, think about that. How cool is that? All the big programs, which we're now part of, is have 7 home games. I mean, before, how many times do you know and recall to start the season that we had 3 straight home games? That's never happened in the football history of UCF football.
It's awesome. Speaking of the history of UCF football, you've seen a lot. What are you expecting to see, I guess, and what are you surprised to see over the years, I guess? It's kind of open-ended question.
Well, I mean, it's a great question, but it's this will be 17 years. And I'll tell you what, it sounds like maybe a short or long time for people, but for me and for the UCF history, it's there's a lot has transpired in the 17 years. I mean, we did Division I in 1996. And from that time forward, it's been, full rockets ahead. And to answer your question, it's so hard to put a finger on something that's turned the thing. But I tell you, when O'Leary came in and we beat Marshall in the Citrus Bowl after, being over, that was a turning point. That was the season that really, I think, started the energy to get all the boosters to get involved and say, hey, you know what, we got to get out of this place. We got to get our own place. And that happened in 2007. The opening of Bright House Network Stadium. Almost beat Texas. Without one fumble, we should have beat them. And ever since, there's so many times, guys. The game, like I alluded to, the Marshall, and then almost beating Texas. There's been so many times beating Houston, the first national-ranked team we've ever beat in our existence. It's just been such a ride and been so proud to be part of it. And you guys are part of it because you guys have been fans and supporters. And now look at your show. You're going to do the post-game thing. I'm so proud of you guys. Think about how far all of us have come together. And it's just been it's not stopping here. We're going forward, and it's going to be a fun ride.
When you look at this season, the big questions. What's the quarterback play? What's the offensive line situation going to look like? What's the secondary going to look like with all of the graduations? What are you looking forward to in this season? What you get your crystal ball out. You're seeing things from 4 wins to 8 wins, maybe more. What's your sense of the team going into the FIU game?
Well, I think the energy is great. FIU, obviously we don't know about FIU because Butch Davis. A lot of people don't know that the 7 teams that are head coaches of FBS were a member of the national coaching team or a player of a national title team. All 7 programs in the state of Florida. You can't say that about Texas or California. The bottom line is I think it's going to be a bowl-eligible year. If McKenzie takes care of the football, I think defense can be good again. Our questions are secondary. Other than that, I think it's going to be a great ride. I think USF, they played last night. They struggled against San Jose State in the start. And I don't know. I think it's going to be a great ride. Scott Frost is landing some guys we never got in certain living rooms of certain recruits in the course of the past several years. And now we're getting guys that are seeing UCF are their top selections or where they're going to go. It's such an exciting time for UCF athletics and football. I think it's going to be 7-8 1 year.
You mentioned the program in general. When you look back at this past season, it certainly has raised expectations, not just for football, but for all of the sports. What a ride it has been from women's basketball, men's basketball, and things have gotten off to a good start as the new season gets underway with women's soccer beating number 4 North Carolina on Friday night. There's a lot of momentum around UCF athletics right now.
Well, kudos to Danny White. He comes in, our new AD, to have the pressure and to have the sense of hiring all these new people. That takes a lot, guys. Think about it. Just to hire one person in one part of the program, he hired across the board. And for all those people and persons coming in as winners, it is something special. I spoke to him one day at football practice, and I was like, I tell you what, Danny, one really big compliment to you is that, everything you did to bring in all these new coaches. I was like, how'd you do it? He goes, with little sleep. And I just, again, kudos to Danny White, great vision. Again, we're no longer a sleeping bear, sleeping giant, whatever you want to say. UCF has arrived. And as Danny White would say, top 25 program all day long. We can compete on all levels in all sports, not just football that everyone likes to ride on and basketball. But I tell you what, with soccer, volleyball, you name it, UCF has arrived. And I'll tell you, as quickly as we've arrived, it's awesome to be part of. It really, really is. And you guys are part of it, and I think it's great.
So you have a radio show as well. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, we're on Wednesdays. We're obviously on the flagship station of UCF, which is FM 96.9 or AM 740. A lot of people know us AM 740. Both radio dials. Now we're moving it to Tuesday. This Tuesday will be our first time in the time slot. From 7 to 9 p.m. It's a great show. We were on Wednesdays, but now the Wednesday is going to be the coach's show, Coach Scott Frost, in that time slot, hence the reason why we moved to Tuesday. So it's been fun, and you guys are always welcome on the show.
Is there a different energy that comes with hosting a show in that evening time slot versus the weekend slot that you held previously?
You know what? That's a great question. You guys are personalities. You guys are in the same type of space. You know, to be honest with you, I'm more excited about my current spot with the primetime spot than I was with the weekend stuff. The weekend stuff I was excited about because I set up the weekend 11 to 1. But to be honest with you, I have 2 young kids. I have other responsibilities. Everything seemed to fit. When the station offered me the primetime spot in the nighttime, it just won across all the boards. And now all of a sudden the listenership's been up. Sponsorships have been very excited. And I'm happy where I'm at. We're going to be Tuesday nights, 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on FM 96.9 or AM 740. Obviously, Orlando Sports Leader of the game. But it's a great time. You guys are always welcome on the show.
Well, I want to extend an invitation to you as well. You mentioned it a little bit, but we're doing our post-game show from Burger U after every home game this year, and we have an extra headset. We will always have it there, and you are welcome at any time if you have a chance to get over there and talk with us.
You know, I tell you, well, that's a perfect time, to be honest with you. I mean, I don't get a chance. A funny side story, guys, while I have your airtime, is that when I call a game at home for Night Nation, when I come home, it takes me 4 or 5 hours to decompress. It's harder than you think to call a game, to bring that energy up and be on spot and on the calls, from the reads to the recognition to the call of the game. So I will take you up on that, because I think that is a great setup for you guys, and I would love the invite, and I will take care of you guys with some good commentary after getting off the mic at Spectrum Stadium.
You are welcome anytime. Absolutely. I can't wait. That'll be a blast.
Now, I don't want to tax your voice. I don't want to tax your voice too much, but Night Nation would like to hear, one of your signatures there. Can you give us a little? Get us wrapped up.
That's good enough for another UCF first down.
There we go.
I can't wait to hear it, man. I'm so excited. I've been a little stressed out. Trace maybe hasn't, but getting all this, we had to buy a bunch of new gear and all that stuff to do this live show, and I've got it all worked out. Finally, I'm so ready for football to start. I'm so ready to hear that call over and over and over again, and for this to be a good season.
No, I mean, listen, seriously, guys, in all sincerity, I really, me being 17 years calling games, all these new people that come in, sometimes I'm afraid that people forget of the people that have been there when it wasn't so bright and shiny. And you're one of the guys that have continued to find the way, and I continue to find the way. And I'm so grateful that you guys understand my value to the program and to the UCF alumni base. And in all sincerity, if there's anything that I can do, monetarily wise, platform wise with my radio show, you always have my support 100%.
Thank you so much. That means a ton coming from you. We really appreciate that.
And I mean, yeah, and I'm completely 100% behind that. You let me know, and I appreciate the inclusion on your show.
Thank you very much. Well, we appreciate having you on. It's always awesome. We love you, and we appreciate it.
No, you guys are awesome. You keep doing great things. Go Knights, charge on. All
righty. Thank you very much.
Take care.
Looking around the American, one game already in the books, the dreaded Cows rallied from an early 16-0 deficit at San Jose State. Beat the Aztecs 42-22. I'm going to call out my friend Jim, went to the Orlando City game with me on Saturday night. He thinks it's bad for the American if the Cows were to have lost that game. I don't care.
I think it would have been great.
I don't care. And maybe I'm wrong on this, but if they're 0-12, I'm fine with that, because I'll tell you what, there are other schools in the America that can rise up and represent the league. I don't need them to do it.
Yeah.
So I disagree vehemently with that.
I think that was my fault, because I kept tweeting that the Cows were getting beat, and they started scoring right then. So I will never do that again.
A couple notable games on the schedule. Tulsa at Oklahoma State. So there's an opportunity to knock off a Big 12 opponent. And Temple at Notre Dame. I like that one. That's coming up on Saturday. And Our thoughts, obviously, with everybody in Houston with this storm that's come in. Their game is at UT San Antonio, but it looks like they're going to have to shift their practice. And as I watched online today, I mean, the whole area is underwater, but the water's now risen into the alumni building, to the dorms, and it's on campus. So, and I've friends in Houston, and it's a bad situation, and it's just sitting there and raining on them. So it's that's a tough situation.
That's what happens with hurricanes for sure, and we've seen it a lot here, so hopefully we won't see anything like that for a long time. Anyway, Knights in the pros, looking around the NFL exhibition slate. Let's review here real quick. Blake Bortles for the last few days, benched. Then Chad Henne got the start against Carolina. Then Bortles came in, 12 of 16 for 125 yards, TD and 1 pick. Whatever. And then now Blake has been named the starter for the season opener. So
what a mess that franchise is.
It's a mess, but I don't blame them because Henne was crap in the first place, and Henne is still crap, so Blake can't be any worse than Henne.
They have no line. They couldn't run against the second-team Carolina defense.
Blake needs to get out of there as quickly as possible.
But he's got to get it. He's got to do the best he can with what he's got.
Right. He's got to use this season to prove to someone that he can take their team and run with it. Storm Johnson, 6 carries for 13 yards for the Dolphins. Shaquille Griffin, 2 tackles for the Seahawks against my Chiefs, which I did not get to see, unfortunately. I couldn't find a stream of that one. And then Brandon Alexander was back healthy for the wonderful Winnipeg Blue Bombers.
Wonderful.
I'm a huge Blue Bombers fan now. I've been watching all their games. It is awesome. He's a heck of a player. Just as much of a player as he was here, he is there. And he was missed being out like 2 or 3 weeks.
They're winding down there now, aren't they? In CFL?
I think it was 8 this week, either week 8 or week 9.
Yeah.
So it goes until November.
Gotcha. Looking ahead at the Knightline Planner, women's soccer goes west at Arizona the 1st and Arizona State on the 3rd of September. Home opener for men's soccer on the 1st. UCF welcomes Charlotte. Volleyball returns from its road trip. Going to be in Florida, but on the road, though. The Sunshine State Challenge in Fort Myers. They play Florida Atlantic, Florida Gulf Coast, and Miami. And cross country kicks off. They don't kick off, do they? They run their season. Boca Raton on the 2nd for the FAU Invitational. Mentioned volleyball. 3 tournaments to open the season on the road. They don't come home until mid-September.
Wow.
And mixed bag for them. Dropped 2 out of 3 in Colorado, opening of the tournament of the year. The Knights beat Northern Colorado in 5 sets. Lost to Duke in 5 sets, and then lost to Colorado State in 4 sets. Key for the Knights this season is going to be the seniors, Kia Bright, who's battled back from a knee injury, and Taylor Wicke.
I'm excited just because I feel like last year was more like just kind of getting the hang of things again, and this year I feel a lot stronger and like more confident in my play. So I feel like I'll be able to contribute more in ways like I wanted to last year, but just wasn't physically able to.
We have a lot of new people that we can kind of teach the UCF way and establish what we want to establish. It's going to be really interesting with a lot of younger girls. They're going to have to adjust fast to the pace of college and just the lifestyle. But I'm really excited. We've got a lot of talent, so I'm excited to see what we're going to be able to do this year.
And now, news and notes from the world of UCF sports. Still 0 for 2017 for new men's soccer head coach Scott Calabrese. The Knights dropped to 0-2 following a Sunday loss. Elon, final in that one, 1-0. Friday, Duke beat UCF 2-0.
How do you replace 19 members of the 2017 baseball team? Well, head coach Greg Lovelady signed 20 players in his first recruiting class.
That's good. And finally, we're number 25 in ESPN's Fan Happiness Index, which ranked all 128 FBS programs. Data used included recruiting trends, revenue growth, and Twitter buzz.
Well, that's something.
It is definitely something.
Better to be in the top 25 for that than not.
Absolutely. All right, this has been episode 120 of Knightline. I'm Andrew Phegley.
I'm Trace Trylko. Join us for Knightline Postgame Live. Go Knights!
Charge on.
Will never yield. Black and gold charge right through the line. Victory is our cry.